Money never meant anything to me unless I was broke. Roy Clark got to call it sleep bear disease. I stopped at the payphone and I called Chet. I said, I went by JD's last night and heard Waylon. He needs to be on a major label. So we sat down at the piano bar and the lady said, I can play anything you want to hear except that goddamn Harper Valley PTA. And somebody sent Billy Joe over and he sang me some songs. I thought, boy, he really is strange. Shel was an unbelievable writer. We heard a great big on the wall, and some woman said, shut the fuck up.
All right, we're in here for another episode of Drifting Cowboy Podcast, and one of the best that I think we'll ever get to do, because we're in here with Mr. Bobby Bare, Grammy winner, Country Music Hall of Famer, and one of the most important figures to ever be in the genre of country music.
Well, thank you very much.
I appreciate you for allowing me to come in your home, beautiful home, by the way, and sit down and talk to you for a little while.
Well, thank you. Good to have you here, and we'll talk a lot about country music.
Yes, sir. Well, I want to talk a lot about your career, obviously. And I kind of like to do things chronologically a lot of the times. How did you get your start in music? How did you get your love for music and songwriting?
Well, since I was just a child, I always knew all the songs and everything, and I loved music, all kinds of music. But the way I got my start, I think I'm from southeastern Ohio, and I was a teenager, 18, 19, and I'd go to Cincinnati to try to get on some record label. Mm. And I tried King, and I tried Music City, or I tried all the record labels and didn't have any luck. And one of them called me back, wanted to know if I could sing like Webb Pierce. And I said, no, Webb Pierce was real big. It was in the 50s. But I really got started then I went to California when I was 19, I think. I went to hitched ride to California, and I started get going out there. Mm. I met Speedy West, the steel guitar player, and he knew Ken Nelson at Capitol Records, and he got me a record deal on Capitol. And I had a couple records there, didn't do anything. And but I gathered a bunch of friends in California who were great. They were really, it's really strange. I wasn't there too long until I met and became friends. We had a clique. There's about 7 or 8 of us in it. Mm. There was myself, Buck Owens, who was from Bakersfield, and Harlan Howard. He worked day job, and he's a hod carrier, where you carry concrete up for people that are building stuff and bricks. And he was a wannabe songwriter. And Wynn Stewart, who was the first of our group really to do anything, he was Skeets MacDonald, I think, got him a record deal at Capitol. Mm. And Wynn had some hits. He's one of the first out of our group to really get national attention. And Hank Cochran, he was part of our group out there.
Wow.
Hank and Eddie Cochran, the Cochran brothers.
Yes, sir.
And Eddie went on to be a rock star, and then Hank, of course, he came back to Nashville one year for the DJ convention and stayed and went to work for Pamper Music, and his career took off. But at the time, there was just that group of us guys, and I think all of us are in the Country Music Hall of Fame. Everybody except Wynn Stewart, and he should be in
Should
there.
be, absolutely.
Merle Haggard was playing bass in Wynn's band. I got to know Merle. It was just a clique. You don't know how or why they come together, but they do. And every one of us really had a career.
Yes. Well, how'd you end up in California? Was it because of the service?
I was working a beer joint, what they call them back in Ohio. I was working a beer joint called Stone's Bar and Grill. And some guy came in the beer joint, and he was a big talker and from California, had on a nudie jacket and California plates on his car, which was an old red convertible where the plastic shield in the back window was out. And he said, "Hey, you boys want to go to California?" And I said, "I do." And my bass player couldn't go. He's married and had kids. But my steel guitar player said, "I'll go." So we all went. Come to find out, we got as far as Oklahoma and realized that our ride driver, his name was Al Warwick. We called him Big Al. But we got to Oklahoma and we found out that Big Al didn't have any money, and he only wanted us because we had a few dollars. And I think we ran it totally out of money in Texoma on the way to California, totally out. I had a quarter. That's when you could buy a pack of cigarettes for a quarter. And you get them back and they'd have 2 pennies taped to the side. They were only 23 cents a package. So I stopped at this place. I guess it was a ballroom of some kind. It was in the afternoon. There was nobody in there. I stopped there and went in, and there was just one person in there. It was a waitress. She's cute. And I was flirting with her, and I turned around and dropped my quarter in the machine. And then I realized that I'd put that quarter in the damn jukebox. And I said, I just turned to her and said, "You play it." And I left. And we found a Big Al. He was a big talker. And Big Al, he went into these bars and he set us up to play for tips in one of them. And we played for tips. And luckily, I knew every song possible. Anything they wanted to hear, I knew it. And I could sing it. And we made enough money, to buy us gas to get through Texas. So we got through Texas, and then we got to Hobbs, New Mexico, and found a place to play. And I made, let's see, another one of those deals where I knew every song possible. And we hit it just right because it was payday, I guess. Because we started getting money in that. We wound up we made $300 that night, believe it or not.
Wow.
And that got us all the way to California.
Wow. Well, you did something, was it before, and I'm not sure if it's before or after you got to California, but a lot of folks write songs for other people to record. But you did something that not many people did. You wrote and recorded a song that became a hit for somebody else.
Oh yeah, that was really a mess. I was living in California, and I got drafted, and I had to go back to Ohio to go in the Army and show up at my draft board in Springfield, Ohio, where I registered for the draft, and so they the week before that I had my buddy who could not go to California with us, the bass player. He was wanting to cut a demo, and it was in a club that we'd worked. It was owned by a guy named Cherokee. His real name is Orville Lunsford, but everybody called him Cherokee because he was a freckle-faced Indian. If you ever seen one, he was one. A freckle-faced Indian. and he was going to pay for it. And Bill was deciding on what he was going to demo. And I was fooling around with these talking blues. So we set up a studio time and got a band out of a bar in Dayton, Ohio, to go down and play with us at King Studio. And when we got down there, the studio was being renovated, and a lot of their equipment was down. And the bass they had, the bridge kept falling. We had all kinds of problems doing. My buddy, his name is Bill Parson, had a lot of problems doing his song. In the meantime, on the way driving down there, I was working on this old talking blues thing. It had nothing to do with recording. I was just working on it, and I had it pretty well down in my head. And so we got to the studio, and Bill was doing his, and with all the going out and buying bridges for a bass and strings that were broken, and the equipment was down. We used up all the studio time except for about 15 minutes. And I said, well, let me put this thing down before I forget it. So I got up there and just counted it off, and the band ran through it once and then ran through it again, and I recorded it, making it up a lot of it I was making up as I was going along, especially the ad-libs. And it was called the All-American Boy, which the way that came about was the equipment to cut a demo, to physically make a demo, was down at King. And they suggested they take it over to Harry Carlson at Fraternity Records in Cincinnati, and he could probably make you a copy. So me and Bill went back up to where the band was from, to the Bottoms Up in Dayton, Ohio, and drinking beer. And Cherokee, who had gone over to Fraternity Records, gave us a call and said that the people there at Fraternity wanted to put that record out. And I said, well, I think I'm under contract to some record label in Hollywood. I said, so you can't connect me with that. So he said, well, he offered us $500 up front. And he said, I need the money to pay for that studio time. I wrote a rubber check. And so he came, he did the deal, came back to Dayton where Bill and I were, and gave me $100, gave Bill $100, and he took the other $300 and covered them bad checks. And I forgot about it because I'd never heard of Fraternity Records. And I figured it was just another little local thing that wouldn't mean nothing. And I spent my $100. Then I went over to Springfield, Ohio, and got on got on a bus with a lot of other recruits on my way to Fort Knox, Kentucky to do basic training. And I was in about the second week of basic training. We were laying there, wore out. And somebody had a transistor radio and was listening to John R. out of WLAC here in Nashville. And they played that. They played it. I said, hey, that's me. And the guy said, oh, shut up, Barry. You're dreaming. Go back to sleep. But that was really a big record. I think it got up to number 2 in the pop charts. Big hit. I think I'm the only person in the world who got covered by Bob Dylan because he recorded that song.
Oh, wow.
It's in one of his albums.
Well, didn't Bill have to do some appearances and lip sync as if?
I couldn't. I was in there, and nobody knew me. Yeah, Bill, he did American Bandstand lip syncing my voice. It was horrible. It was way off. And, they threw a big party for him at 2 Shores in New York City. And he bought him a car. In fact, when this first started to hit, Bill called me up, and he said, I'm scared to death. He said, I don't even know that song, and I want me to do American Bandstand. And he got one tour out of it. He was on that tour where Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and all of them were
the Winter
killed.
Dance
Richie
tour.
Valens, where they were all killed. He was on that. And Waylon was a bass player for Buddy Holly on that tour. And Waylon told me later, he said, I went up to Bill and I said, that's not you singing that song, is it? Bill said, no. He said, that's Bobby Bear, a GI in the Army. And Waylon caught it right away.
That's a funny twist of fate, because then it would be you later on that.
Well, I think everything works out for the best, really. I've thought about that. I know I lost a lot of money, but money never meant anything to me unless I was broke. But if my name had been on that, it was such a big hit, I would have been pegged as a comedy recording artist, somebody who did funny things. And I would never had big hits like Detroit City and 500 Miles.
Right.
Because I've been pegged as a comic.
Well, you talked about being over in California and being around guys like Wynn Stewart and Merle Haggard in those early days of the Bakersfield sound.
Right.
And you actually cut one of Buck Owens' songs real early on.
My very first record on Capitol was Down on the Corner of Love that Buck wrote. Buck played on it. Yeah, he came in and played guitar on it.
Ken Nelson produced that record, wasn't
he? Ken did.
He had some words about Buck. He didn't think he was too great.
Well, yeah, he told me whenever he presented that song, I had heard it. It was on Pep label. They played it on the radio out there. I had heard it. And I love Buck singing. I said, oh, yeah, I know that. That's Buck. Ken's comment was, well, Buck's a good guitar player and songwriter, but he can't sing. I wish I had a recording of that. I remember we were in the elevator one day. He said, Buck can't sing.
He sure ate those words. Another, just to show how small of a world it is while you was in California, you were playing a beer joint out there pretty close to the Fender headquarters.
Yeah, in Santa Ana, about 2 blocks from the Fender headquarters. I know what you're talking about because Leo used to come in there all the time.
Uh-huh.
And at the time, he only had the Telecaster guitar, but he was in the process of doing the Stratocaster, and he wanted to be a different shape than the Telecaster. And he would come in and bring just a chunk of wood, big enough to be a guitar, and he'd be shaping it up, and he would ask my guitar player to play it and see what he thought about it. Well, you take a little bit off here and there, and my guys, I guess, helped him shape the Stratocaster.
That's incredible.
I wish I had that piece of wood right now.
Yeah, no telling how much that's worth.
It'd be worth a lot.
Well, how long were you out in California before you came to Nashville?
10 years.
10 years?
10 years.
How'd you make that transition of coming over to Nashville?
I was in the middle of having 2 or 3 major hit records, but what I really wanted to do was get married and have babies. Then I met Jeannie, and I seriously decided I wanted to get married. And marriages just do not last in Hollywood. There's just too much temptation, too much of this and too much of that. And I knew that. And I had auditioned, been accepted for a lead role in a TV series, did a movie.
Wow.
And I could feel myself being pulled in that direction. And I did not want that. I wanted to be a country music singer and go on the road. That's all I ever wanted to be. So I just decided that I'm going to shit can the movies and the TV, be a TV star. I didn't want that. And so we just packed up, moved to Nashville, got married up in Springfield. Hank Cochran was best man. Hank's been married 15 times.
He was the expert.
You get married up in Springfield, Bear, and you get divorced up there too. He said, I done it twice. And so Hank was best man. And so we got married, bought a house here, and started raising babies. That's what I wanted.
Well, that's pretty brave you were having that much success over in Hollywood and getting pulled into movies and TV shows and having that kind of success, but sticking to what you wanted to do and uprooting and coming to Nashville.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was much easier, too, because I was recording all my hits in Nashville and working with Chet Atkins, and I wanted to be close to Chet. And there's a lot of other reasons, but I moved to Nashville because I wanted to raise my kids in Nashville, not Hollywood.
How'd you get to know Chet and get to record those first hits?
A guy by the name of Troy, I forget his last name. He worked for a publishing company. He set up an appointment for me to meet Chet. Chet wanted to meet me. And so I went over and met Chet. I was in town. And I told Chet, I said, I know I'm going to cut a bunch of hit records, and I think I can do it with you. And he was playing me songs, and he played me a song that Lawton Williams wrote called Shame on Me for Hurting You. And I said, if I ever cut a hit, that will be it. And he said, well, I will set up the studio time, and you come back in 2 weeks, and I'll have the contracts, and we'll record. And so I said, okay, and I went up to Harry Carlson. By then I was on Fraternity Records, the one that had the All-American Boy. I was putting out records on his label. And I went up and told Harry that I was leaving, and I was going with Chet at RCA. And on my way back down here, I stopped off in Louisville. Boyd Bennett had a big hit back in the late 50s called 17. I listened to him and his band one night, and I fell in love with their horns, what their horns were doing. And when I got back to Nashville and I signed the deal with RCA and Chet, I told Chet I'd heard this great sound of a trumpet and a saxophone, what they were playing, and I would like to use horns. So we got Bill Justice, who's a trumpet player. We got Bill, and he wrote out the arrangement. We recorded Shame on Me with horns. And as soon as I recorded it, I went back to California that evening to work with Cliffy Stone and the publishing company out there. And Hank Cochran drove me to the airport. And the record came out almost immediately and became a really big hit. I think it sold 1 million records because it was in the pop charts forever. Then I got to worry about what my next record going to be.
Where was it that you stayed when you were in Nashville visiting from L.A.?
Well, before I could afford to stay in the motels and hotels, by then Harlan Howard and Hank Cochran both had moved back to Nashville. And Harlan, highly successful songwriter, and they'd bought a big house. Never been in a house that big. So I'd stay at their house. Harlan would get up every morning at daylight and write songs and drink coffee with a ton of sugar in it. He wrote I Fall to Pieces, and Heartaches by the Numbers. It just goes on.
Yeah.
And so I'd stay there, but mostly when I'd come back for the, after I'd had a hit or two, we'd stay at the old downtown or downtown. It was the only motel in town. I think there might have been 1 or 2 flop houses on the edge of town, but that's where everybody stayed.
Yeah.
Because the big parties and things were going on about a block away at the Andrew Jackson Hotel. We'd all gather at somebody's room. I mean, I remember one night we were gathered in, I think, Tex Ritter. Tex Ritter had a room, and me, Roy Clark, and Roger Miller, and Willie, just a gang in there having a guitar pulling. I think that's what's missing now, because we used to have, whenever we'd get together on any kind of an event, you'd always wind up in somebody's room. Everybody standing around, sitting around, or laying, and we'd have a guitar pulling. I would kind of, about halfway through it, I always slept a lot. So about halfway through it, I would just kind of ease out the door and go to my room and go to bed. To the point where Roy Clark got to call it sleep bear disease.
Bear disease.
Him and Roger Miller could stay up for 2 days.
Wow. When you started touring around, you were down in Arizona, and that's when you discovered Waylon. We talked about Waylon first hearing about you on the Winter Dance Tour. It kind of come full circle then.
Yeah, when I lived in California, I made friends with Don Bowman, who was a DJ on all the pop stations out there, and a comedian. I met Don, and Don was telling me about Waylon, who's a friend of his. in Phoenix. So I was in Phoenix one day and I met Waylon. And then I think that, and I thought, boy, he's great. And I came back. The next time I came to Phoenix, I went out to JD's and I saw Waylon working with the crowd and the people and the songs that he was singing, and it just blew me away.
Yeah.
I'd been talking to Chet about it anyway, but on my way to from Phoenix to Las Vegas, where I was heading, I stopped at the payphone and I called Chet, and I told him, I said, I went by JD's last night and heard Waylon, and I said, he's absolutely great. I said, he needs to be on a major label, and he needs to have a Chet Atkins to produce him. And I said, I know I'm cutting my own throat by doing this because we'll be doing the same kind of songs with the same audience. But I said, he needs to be on a major label. After we hung, and I gave Chet his phone number. After we hung up, Chet called Waylon and said, come back to Nashville 2 or 3 weeks. We'll have the paperwork and we'll record. That's the way that happened. It happened over the phone.
Well, you know, I said at the beginning that you're one of the most important people ever in the genre of country music, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. You've been a champion for so many people, not just Waylon, but Johnny Rodriguez, which we can talk about that story, and Tom T. Hall played bass for you. And how did that come to be?
I had a tour going on, some shows, and I didn't have a bass player. And Tom T. said, well, I'll go. So he did. He played bass, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 months. I remember one show was in L.A. at the big auditorium there. Well, I forget the name of it, the arena. I remember Tom T. We got to meet Audie Murphy.
Oh, wow.
He was there. It's a big deal. But Tom T. before he played bass, he used to go on the road with me just to get out of town. We'd go, I'd do a show and he'd help me drive. I remember I was doing Carnegie Hall, and I said, come on, go with me. I said, you never seen Carnegie Hall. And all right, so we did. We went, drove from Nashville to New York City. I did Carnegie Hall, and then we drove back. I know that's when they were first building the interstate up through there, 81. You know, you'd ride it a while, and then it'd put you off on a dirt road. You'd ride a while, and you'd back on.
Yeah.
They was building those interstates. And I had Tom T. had driven from New York to down into Virginia, and we stopped, and I said, I'll drive and rest you a little bit. So I was driving, and I got pulled over on, not on the interstate, but on the off-road. I was pulled over right here, and the officer said, you were speeding through our town. I said, okay, I'll follow you he said, no, you're here. He had pulled me over right in front of a house, and I went in the house, and there was a judge sitting there in her bathrobe. had that smell of a rigged deal. But judge, there was 2 kids there from the University of Tennessee they were really upset because they pulled them over. And they couldn't get a hold of their dad. They said, and so they had me for the same thing he had them for, 10 miles over the speed limit or something. And mine was like $100. So luckily I'd gotten paid in money, not a check. And so I just paid it, was leaving, and one of these kids says, "How come you charged us $200 for the same thing you just charged him $100?" And the judge says, "Because you talk too much." I think that's where Tom T probably got the idea for the Battle of $40. I'm guessing.
Tom T said that he thought you was allergic to Freon because you'd ride with the windows down everywhere, and that's why y'all got pulled over so much, because the cops thought y'all were drug dealers.
Oh, no.
Was that before Tom had any big hits written?
Yeah. He had some, but he hadn't had Harper Valley PTA yet. Mm-hmm. When that was a hit, that was a monster hit.
Yeah.
I mean, me, Jeannie, Jan Howard, Tom T, and Dixie were out one Saturday night just hopping around doing what you do. Mm-hmm. And we went in this one bar, and they had a piano bar. And they had some elderly lady playing the piano. And the only place we could find a seat was at the piano bar. So we sat down at the piano bar, and the lady said, "I can play anything you want to hear except that goddamn Harper Valley PTA. I hate that song." And Tom T started looking around. We're all giggling. We didn't tell her he wrote it.
That's funny. I know you obviously had a lot of writers that you had in your publishing company. So many, Billy Joe Shaver being one of them. I know that he wrote with Hillman Hall. Did you have Hillman Hall writing under you, or?
No, Hillman wasn't writing for me, but he was in my office all the time. He was real close friends with my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, who ran the office, and real close friends with me. Hillman would go on the road with me sometimes. And, but he never did write for me. I guess he wrote for Tom T.
Yeah.
Good man.
Well, we was talking about Billy Joe Shaver there. How did you come to discover him?
I had an office in the RCA building, and I was just starting a publishing company, and I was looking for writers. And somebody sent Billy Joe over, and he sang me some songs. And I thought, boy, he really is strange. And he had some fingers missing. And played guitar funny with those fingers. But I listened to these songs, and then after he left, and I thought, he's kind of scary. And I thought, what am I going to do with that? And then I decided, well, those are really, really great songs, great lyrics. I thought his melodies were a little cowboyish, but like the old cowboy songs. I had second thoughts, and I called him and signed him up to my publishing company, and it started there. And we became friends, and I introduced him to Waylon and Tom T and
Yeah.
Willie, all to everybody, and he just sang one song for Tom T. And Tom T liked it so much he recorded it. Bill Joe's one of a kind. Now he really was an outlaw. He was everything that people thought Waylon was.
Yeah.
Bill Joe was the real thing.
Yeah.
And he'd go on the road with me sometimes too.
You know, you think of Billy Joe Shaver, and he's kind of tied to Waylon because Waylon did that whole Honky Tonk Heroes album, which is just
Right.
such a fantastic album. And you think of writers like Dean Dillon, who's attached to George Strait. When you think of Bobby Bear, you got to think of Shel Silverstein.
Yep.
How'd you get to know Shel?
I got to know Shel through Chet. Shel was an unbelievable writer, creative. He had children's books that were big hits.
Yeah.
And, of course, all that stuff he did for Playboy magazine. But Chet gave me a big acetate with Shel singing his demos. And me and Jeannie were at Felice and Boodle Bryant at the time lived in Hendersonville, and we were going. They invited us to their house for dinner because Felice was a great cook, and when I got to Felice and Boodle's house, we were sitting around and Boodle was playing songs. And, of course, I played him Shel's demos, and Boodle was very bright. He said he's a great songwriter, but, boy, he can't sing, and he couldn't. He screeched. And Felice and Boodle had written Rocky Top. Rocky Top was originally it was a slow song that he wanted me to do. It wasn't the up-tempo bluegrass thing. It was a slow song that he felt I should do like 500 miles. But I didn't. And in later years, they moved to Gatlinburg.
Yes, sir.
They had a motel there. It was called Rocky Top. The motel was. But they had written so many big hits. Bye Bye Love, all those Everly Brother hits. Felice and Boodle O'Brien.
Well, you and Shel had an interesting relationship because you could really interpret what Shel had in his head for a song like nobody else could.
Shel was such a great writer. I mean, actually, what I was doing was gambling because anybody with any sense at all, if you record 10 Shel Silverstein songs, at least one of them has got to be a big hit. And I knew the odds on that.
Yeah.
And I took them. And I did, not 10, I did 20. And I was right. I think there was 3 big hits in that album, including Marie Laveau.
Yeah. You were wanting to do a concept album, wasn't
Yeah.
you?
Well, I went to all of my friends. I went to Harlan and Hank and all the writers that I knew and told them to write me an album. And it scared them to death because they're used to getting single records. They'd never heard anybody who wanted an album.
Right.
I said, write me an album that means something. And I threw all the songwriters a curve. I didn't get a taker. They were used to having a single record. If I got a hit for you, not here is a bunch of hits.
Right.
So I was at Harlan's house one Saturday night during CMA week and ran into Shel. And I told him my dilemma. I said, I can't get anybody to write me an album. Well, he said, let me think about that. So this was on Saturday night. Monday, I got a call from Shel. He said, I got you an album. I said, great. When can I hear it? He said, I'll fly down there right now. So he was there that afternoon, and he started singing me these songs and just blowing me away. He said some of them, when he started singing The Winter and he got halfway through it, and I was laughing so hard I had to make him stop. So I said, well, I'll go in the studio and try 3 or 4 of these, see what happens. Went to the studio, and they all came off really good, and I was happy. And I called Shel. I said, come on down. We'll do the whole album. Mm. We did the album. It's good that we did more. And then we wound up with a double album. And the first song out of there was a big hit, nominated for a Grammy. It was a song called Daddy, What If, with me and Bobby Jr. And the way that happened was Vito Blando was an RCA Records promotion guy in Atlanta. And Vito was a friend of mine, and he was in town, and I gave him a copy of this album. I said, Vito, listen to this and let me know what you think ought to be a single. And he was a good record man, good music man. And he went back to Atlanta, and he played the album, and he played Daddy, What If? And him being a very sentimental Italian, it just floored him. Tears rolling down his cheek. It's such a wonderful song.
Yeah.
He took it to WSB in Atlanta, which at the time was the biggest radio station in the South.
Yeah.
And he took it to WSB, and they played it. Their phones lit up. Vito's, you got to put this out. This is a smash. And we did, and it was. But that's how that came to be. And Bobby Jr. was, I think he was only 6 years old.
That record was the first one that you cut after Chet got you to come back to RCA and gave you creative control over making that album.
Yeah, I had been with Mercury. And I'd had a few hits over there, Come Sundown, and that's how I got to Memphis. Those songs. But my deal was up at Mercury. And of course, I always stayed close to Chet, even when I wasn't at RCA. I was with Chet as much as possible. I told him my deal was up at Mercury. He said, well, why don't you come back to RCA? I said, well, since you stopped producing, you've got too many producers over there. And I get confused on what to put out because each producer wants to put their thing out. He said, well, why don't you produce your own records? He said, I don't think you'd go crazy in the studio. I said, no, I wouldn't. I said, great, I'll do it. And the minute I signed it, the first person I called was Shel. I knew I was on the right track.
And that was unheard of in those days, wasn't it?
Yeah, nobody in the country field were ever doing was ever doing that type of an album before. A concept album was really unheard of. It was all your hits in one album. Usually greatest hits album or an album full of songs with one hit in it. But a concept album was hadn't entered into the country part of it yet.
And that's why they call you the architect of the outlaw movement. You're the first one to produce your own records, concept record. I mean, Willie's biggest album after the outlaw movement started, Redheaded Stranger, was a concept album as well. But you just have been such a trailblazer for first things, you know, doing that thing. Also, you were the first artist, one of the first artists to go over to Europe and bring country music over there to a new audience over there.
Well, that's true. It was on the European trip, I think it was 62 or 63, somewhere in there. We were the very first country show to actually tour Europe. We played all the major venues. It was me and Chet, the Native Kerr singers, Jim Reeves, and we played all the big venues, and it was a huge success.
What was the feeling like going over there? Were y'all nervous about how the reception would be?
No, I wasn't. I was just looking forward to something new. I was curious.
Yeah.
And, of course, I was riding on some big hits. I knew I had got silver records from Norway, and I knew that I had a big international audience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got a gold record from South Africa.
Wow.
But I knew I had a big international audience, and so did Jim Reeves. So I figured, I was pretty sure we was going to have crowds, and we did.
Yeah.
They televised a lot of them.
What was Jim like?
He was good to me, but he really was hard to get along with a lot of other people, you know, because he was kind of like an asshole most of the time. And he was hard on the bus driver and his side men. And he sat down with me one day and he said, "Bobby, I bet you think I'm really an asshole." He said, "You know why I do that?" He says, "I do it to get things done. If I don't do it, they don't get done." And I said, "I understand that."
Yeah.
And we hadn't been back from that trip 2 months till he was killed in a plane crash. Him and Dean Manuels, who had been with us on that tour, the piano player in Jim's band.
Didn't you receive a card from Jim? Like, wasn't it on the day that it happened that you was sick or something?
Yeah, I was booked in Minneapolis, and I came down with the mumps. And boy, that was hard. I was in the hospital. Yeah, I got a call from Jim. He'd heard I was in the hospital. But then I had, they knew the plane was crashed. They were looking for it. And I kept, I was talking to Willie on the phone 2 or 3 times, checking. He was out with them trying to find them. And they finally did. It was tragic.
Well, I don't want to get too far away from Shel, because there is a story that I heard. You were talking about his way of singing, or screeching, as you put it. You told a story of being in a hotel, and you'd been singing for a few hours, and then Shel took over.
Oh, yeah. We were at the Holiday Inn on West End here. Was going over, I was fixing to record. There was just the two of us sitting in the room. It was nighttime. And I was singing. And one of them, Shel said, no, here, let me have. It goes like this. You hit it, you go, and you do it again. And finally, we heard a great big on the wall. And some woman said, shut the fuck up. I said, Shel, I've been singing here all night long. Not a word. You open your mouth once. And they start pounding on the walls. We better call it a night. That's him doing the witch scream on Marie Laveau.
Oh, really?
That's his singing voice. That witch scream. It is.
I didn't realize that. Well, coming through the 70s, the outlaw movement starts. What was that like for you?
Well, I knew from the beginning, I knew that it was all a hype because I was close to Waylon and Willie, and I understood how shifty their manager was, but I also knew how much of a promoter he was. And they did this. It was just an album of songs that they put together called the Outlaws. They put it out on the ones they put on RCA Camden, which is their throwaway albums. So they put it out as a throwaway album, and it caught on. So Neil Rushing, their manager, he grabbed on to that and promoted them as outlaws. And, you know, it wasn't like they were doing anything different. They were just being themselves.
Yeah.
And they just happened to look the part.
Yeah.
You know, they looked, Waylon had long hair down at his ass. And Willie, they all looked the part of a hippie outlaw. And that's great.
I had no idea that they put it out as kind of on their throwaway label.
The
and then
outlaw-
it became the first ever platinum record in country music.
Right. But it was a throwaway album.
Wow.
It was they put out another one. I was in it. I forgot what I was singing. But I was in it. But it didn't fare as well as the first one.
Well, you've known a lot of people, everybody that's come through the industry, just about it. You actually lived next to Johnny Cash for about 45 years, didn't you?
He lived out here on the lake. And I lived down the lake from him. I used to go out there and we'd get us some worm and sit down there on the brick wall and fish for bluegill. John was a real good friend, caring person. He's my daughter, him and June are my daughter's grandparent, or godparents.
Oh, wow.
And I knew John. I used to go to his house when he lived in California. Used to go out there.
One of my favorite videos I ever saw is of you doing your Johnny Cash impression.
Oh, my.
You did it very well.
Oh, my.
You've had some other interesting neighbors, though, too. You lived next to George and Tammy for a while.
George and Tammy lived right next door to me, right across the driveway.
Oh, wow.
When they were married, they were first married, really. That's where they lived there when Georgette was born. And they were happy.
Yeah.
Their marriage was working. Everything was great. And it did start to fall apart till they moved to Florida.
Yeah.
But it was going well. I ran into George once in the driveway, and George says, I haven't had nothing to drink in 2 months. He said, I feel so good, I would just want to go out and get drunk and celebrate. but they were doing really well when they lived out there on the lake beside me.
Yeah.
And Jeannie and Tammy became friends. In fact, as Jeannie was there the night, went over the night that Tammy died.
Oh, really?
Yeah, her and Jan Howard went to the house, and Tammy was laying there on the couch dead.
Well, the 70s was a great decade for country music, creative control and everything that was happening there. And then the 80s came around, and it seems like sometime in the early 80s, a switch flipped in country music, and all the good things that was happening in the 70s seemed to have just kind of went away. What was your perspective of that?
I blamed it on the record companies. Because they, if something is hugely successful, they want something like that. Give me something like that, like this. And it gets real confusing to the creative people that really, I think, songwriters more or less control a lot of where the music goes. And you get a great songwriter trying to write something that's out of their realm. The end result is not really good.
Right. I talked about all of the songwriters that you helped through the years, and I know a couple of them, a few of them personally, and everybody that I meet that knows you, Jeannie C. Riley, we just had on the show. She said that she wished she would have had sense enough to say when she was riding around with you in Tomty Hall that you was one of the finest people that she ever knew.
Oh, yeah.
Wanted you to know that. And a couple of other guys who talked extremely highly of you is Roger Murrah and Jim McBride.
Yeah. We just lost Jim.
Just lost Jim. Jim was such a good friend and a great guy, but they said you called him Little Curlies when they were writing under you. But you just had such incredible talent that you've fostered through the years.
Roger Murrah is a great songwriter.
Oh, yeah.
He's a good singer, too. A lot of songwriters didn't sing that well, but he does. He good songwriter. When I sold my publishing company to an outfit out of L.A., and I wanted them. They wanted Billy Joe Shaver, which they got him, and I retained 25% of the publishing company, and I wanted Roger Murrah, but they didn't. I said, well, I will pay him out of my part. They still wouldn't do it. And it wasn't a month till Roger had a monster hit by somebody. I forget the name of it now. It wasn't a country thing. It was a huge pop thing, which proved me right. And it's always good to be right.
Yeah. Yeah, Roger's a great songwriter. Where Corn Don't Grow and A Bridge That Just Won't Burn. Don't Rock the Jukebox. Jim was another one, though, too. He could sing. He was a great singer. He probably could have had a career as a singer himself, Jim McBride.
Yep.
He was great.
I loved his singing.
Yeah.
I thought he should have been a star.
Yeah, he could have been, and just such a nice guy. I hate that we lost him. He was a good friend and a good guy. But in the late 80s, didn't one of the record executives ask you to write some songs like Bob Seger? You told him just to cut you loose because that wasn't your style.
Yeah, they had a board. They had a board of people. They had about 4 or 5 people that would vote on stuff. And you play them something that you liked, and they'd vote on it.
Mm.
And these were not people that had anything to do with writing a song or cutting a record. They were involved in promotion and whatever record company have. Oh, yeah. And I played them something that's pretty good. Could you give us something like Bob Seger? I said, I probably could, but it wouldn't be any good. But, of course, I'm a big Bob Seger fan, still am.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's the greatest. I wish I could have sang like him. I'd have made that guy happy.
Well, your most recent album that you did was inspired by Hoyt Axton, who you were friends with, and you actually co-wrote Guy Clark's last song with him.
Yeah, I used to go over Guy's house, and we'd write songs together. God, he was great.
Yeah, he was a phenomenal writer.
I did several Guy Clark songs.
Yeah.
Desperados, Waiting for a Train.
Yeah.
That great New Cut Road.
Yeah.
That was a true story.
Well, Bobby, I don't want to keep you too long. I know we've been talking for a while now, but I do want to say how much I just appreciate you as an artist, as a person, and everything that you've done for country music. You know, that your show that you did in the 80s, the Bobby Bear and Friends, those are fantastic. One of the greatest compliments I've ever been paid was somebody told me one day, he said, you know, your style of interview and the way you let people talk reminds me of Bobby Bear and Friends. And I thought that was just the greatest compliment I could ever be paid. And I just thank you for everything you've done for music.
Well, it's been a work of love on my part because I've loved everything I've ever done.
Yeah.
I've never done something I didn't really care about. And all the TV shows I've done and the records that I've recorded, my biggest hits were songs that I loved a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, Detroit City, I had to fight for that, to get a copy of that. John Denny was in my room at the Downtowner playing demos, stuff, and he accidentally hit on Detroit City.
Mm.
I said, oh, play that. He said, no, that's already been out by Billy Graham. I said, play it. Nah, I said, you either play it or get your ass out of here. And so he played it. I said, make me a copy. I'll record that because I love that song.
Yeah.
But everything that I have ever done that's been successful is something that I've loved a lot.
Yeah.
And it shows.
Well, my hope before I got here and in studying everything to do this was that the people who listen and watch can start to draw the lines between everything you've done and just see the huge impact. Without you, country music would have been just totally different. All the people that's lives you impacted and careers that you helped foster. And I think everybody who's a fan of country music owes you a big thanks for that.
Well, I appreciate that, but and on part of that, I'll agree. You know, without me, they may have gone a different direction, and that's where it becomes important. because if you can get somebody who is really talented, headed in the right direction, then they'll be successful. But if they're not, without me, they may not have gone in that right direction.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel good.
Well, I know on behalf of everybody who listens to this show, we all love you and appreciate everything that you've done for the music. And I know just from talking to guys like Roger Murray and Jim McBride and Gary Gentry, who was on your show, who wrote The Ride, every one of them, when I told them I was doing this, they said, you tell him how much we appreciate him for everything that he did for us.
That's good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate the stories. And again, thank you for allowing me to come into your beautiful home out here and doing this with me.
You're good at it.
Thank you.